people from being called the C word is defending their white identities. It literally is.
And you believe that's the equivalent of saying that, like, it should be okay to be racist?
I didn't say it's okay to be racist.
Well, you just said that it's defending people that, like, specifically perpetuate the idea of white supremacy.
Yeah, stopping people from saying the C word is defending the white identity.
If defending the white identity means not being racist, then I'm going to defend the white identity. I'm sorry, brother.
No, oh my god. Like, you think that saying the C word is racist?
Yes. It is a derogatory term used about somebody's race. How isn't that racist?
Racism requires you to have systemic power. And, like, you can be prejudiced, you can be mean, like...
Okay, do you know what the difference between systemic racism and interpersonal racism is?
Yes, I do know what the difference between...
Okay, do you think interpersonal racism requires systemic power?
I think it requires some history and some systemic power to some degree, yes.
Okay.
There's context. Like, for example, the N-word would mean nothing in an interpersonal relationship without the systemic power.
So then me, as a black man, I'm a black Native American Mexican, all right? And I'm going to use all my cards in this deck. If I go to mainland China, I can use any racial slur against mainland Chinese people, and because I have no systemic power in mainland China whatsoever, and I'm actively discriminated against on all three of my cards, I'm not racist. You would agree with this?
Why? This is such a silly, like...
Deal with it. You got to deal with it. It fits all of your criteria.
I don't know that it does. Like, I don't think going to do racist tourism makes a lot of sense, dude.
Hey,
like,
well, no, that's the world you're building. So am I racist or am I not being racist?
Okay, oh my god, this is such a stupid argument, and I don't want to have to go into it. So you go to China as a black, indigenous Mexican, right?
I go to China as me. I'm not lying about who I am. That makeup racially right now. If I go to mainland China right now, I say the C slur against some Chinese people. Am I racist? That simple. It's not that deep. I go to China as me,
if you go to
and
China
I say a C slur.
Calling people
a C slur. Then is that racist? Oh, okay. Doesn't matter.
Fuck. I thought you were talking about the white C slur.
No. I start using racial slurs against Chinese people. Am I racist?
Okay. Well, duh, because you're going somewhere to be racist when you... Okay.
No. Let's say I just go there and I happen to say it.
Is there a history of oppression against Chinese people in America? And if you use American racism against Chinese people in China, it's still American racism.
What makes you say it's American racism?
Well, the way we practice racism in different areas is different, right? Like,
is there no such thing as... Wait, can you give me an example of Chinese racism?
Well, like, I don't know, like, if they have nationalist views against black people, for example, or whatever.
Yeah?
Like, the way they express it, like, they don't have the KKK in the same way. They just have something else. But when I say American racism, I mean, like, using American terms or using American... You can go to China and use whatever
if I learn a racial slur in Mandarin, I can use it?
Yeah, do that.
Let's actually assume that I do. In your weird hypothetical, I need to learn a Mandarin slur. Am I racist if I learn a Mandarin slur against Chinese people?
This is, like, ad absurdum at this point. It's ridiculous.
Not. The problem is that this is your world. This is your world, homie. It's this deep for me. Racial slur equals bad. That's it. It doesn't matter if you're in mainland China. It doesn't matter where you are. You got to deal with the racism or the power plus oppression or prejudice plus systemic power. I think that shit's pretty cringe. I would call this interpersonal racism. It's still racism. It doesn't matter if every single person in the world all of a sudden tomorrow is ruled, or everywhere in the world is ruled by black people. The N-word is still going to hit different. I'm sorry. That's the way that it works. It doesn't matter if tomorrow everywhere in the world is ruled by Chinese people. Racial slurs against Chinese people are still going to hit different. Systemic power, in my opinion, doesn't mean that, like, you can't be racist to the person. You got to deal with the bed that you made, bro. And you
historical context and systemic power. I've said both of those words 100 times.
And I have neither.
Historical context matters as well.
So I have neither. I have been oppressed in America systemically on all three of my cards. All three of my cards have been oppressed every moment America has fucking existed. So I go to China, right? I go to China. I drop some slurs. Am I racist?
Yeah, sure. You're
Why?
racist. Because the
Why?
historical context. The historical context.
There is no historical context for me and my people.
Okay, but the historical context of the people you're attacking matters. Just
What
because
do you mean?
Oh my god. Okay. Just because this is like white people who pay people like money in reparations. Like it's like, what the fuck, man? No, it's about like their history and systemic and like what we as a group have done to them, right? And so like we have as a group, for example, with the C slur against Chinese people, is like we've been using that ever since we've been blowing them up trying to build our railroads and shit, right? So like that has a historical context.
Okay, so what if I don't use? So then, hold on. What if I don't? What if I don't
The
use the
reason
slur?
why the N-word hits differently is because of the historical context of slavery and torture against black people.
What if I don't use the slur then? What if I just make fun of the way Chinese people look?
Does that have historical context as well? Yes, it does. In all of our media, historical context for making fun of the way Chinese people look.
So does that mean then we should never make fun of anybody for any way that they look or their skin or any immutable characteristic because there's a context in which people have been made fun of and persecuted for these identities in the past, and maybe we should be
White people
principally
are
against
persecuted.
This?
White people aren't persecuted, dude.
Wait. You know Bernie Sanders is Jewish, right?
In the context of Judaism, Jewish people aren't considered white the same way.
Then why did we just earlier refer to him as white?
We discussed this, the shifting boundary of whiteness.
Right,
you
and if
understand
the shifting boundary of whiteness exists, there has been many white people that have been prosecuted for the way they look. For instance, Jewish people.
Not for being white.
People.
Not
yes.
for being white.
Hold on.
Not for being white.
But because of the way that they look. So why am I making fun of people on something that they cannot change? Why am I doing that? Why am I not a piece of shit for doing that when that has been the basis for all systemic oppression against races of people and classifications of people? Why would I continually perpetuate that system? Just because I don't like white people? What is this argument? No, the best argument would consistently be to not make any appeal to this.
Do you think that I don't like white people?
Yeah, I legitimately believe you have some white guilt.
I love all my white family and shit. Like, what the fuck?
It genuinely, I think a lot of white people that take this opinion have quite a bit of white guilt. That's my opinion on it.
That's a huge assumption, man.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
You're just assuming that it's about white guilt, and you're not really taking into like I've told you, it's about the historical context. I've told you my position, and you don't really seem to care.
Hold on, I've made arguments against the historical context not being a good argument. That there is historical. Hold on, there's been historical context behind different groups of people that we now consider to be white, at least in America. We now consider to be white that have been discriminated against. What do you mean?
Do you believe that there's ever been a white genocide? Or
there's been a prosecution of white people, for instance, in the Haitian Revolution. Yeah.
Okay, and the Haitian Revolution were now run by Haitian people. You know, Haitian people have all this power in the world, right?
Wait, if they did, then would it not be... Hold on, wait. If they did, then would it not be okay to say the C slur? Is that what you're saying?
Let's say, for example, in your fucked up, stupid, thing... Like, the Haitian people gained power, became a global superpower, and started fucking torturing white people. Yeah, then maybe we'd have an argument about the C slur. But otherwise, the C slur is a joke. It's not serious. Who cares? White people have not been persecuted, have not been oppressed. And if you are arguing about specific white people, like the Jewish people or, say, the Mennonite people in Russia or whatever the fuck you want to refer to, it's not the same, dude. It's specifically against specific groups for their religion or their race, but never against people for being specifically white. White is a position that's built in its own.
Would you extend? So there's many issues that I have with this. So for one, you would say then your argument would be into infinity. We can never say into infinity due to something happening in the past. We could never make any appeal to somebody's immutable characteristic, is what you're saying. So we could never, a slur or anything like that, because in the past it was used in a bad way. So, like, for instance, dumb. We could never use that word into the future because of its history. We could never use any derogatory term that has had bad history. We can never use them into infinity.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, like, is this a legitimate question, or have you noticed my username?
I don't know what your username is.
My username's Slow Queer. The word queer is a reclaimed slur. The reason why I use that reclaimed slur is because the context has changed. So obviously I believe that you can change the context of a word. That being said, I don't think that the word cracker, or the C word, sorry, has the historical relevance or the necessity to be reclaimed. It's not like the same thing, dude.
If slurs can change how they operate in regards to whether or not it is acceptable for people to use them, why is it that, for instance, arguments about, hey, making fun of people, even on the basis of their race, can't change in your mind? Because you don't take an immutable characteristic approach. You say the reason why it's bad to make fun of people is because of the history of those people being made fun of. But you just disagreed with that in the Haitian Revolution example. That if Haitian people took over the world, then maybe it might not be okay to say the C slur. What do you mean? So is the historical context of, hey, this group of people is now a dominant superpower in the world, or whatever we would consider the point of relevance being, does that then mean that the historical context no longer matters?
Okay, if the Haitians or whatever managed to take over America and started using the oh my god, the C word, as a way of categorizing white people, as they, I don't know, fascistically threw them into camps and like murdered them, sure, maybe the context of that word would change, but that's like a ridiculous hypothetical to even like extend it to. There's no point in extending it that far. Like if the context changes, sure, then maybe we should stop saying it. But the context isn't that. The context is that the C word refers to the power and the oppression that white people have had over black people. That's why.
Why is that relevant if certain power structures are not in play inside of specific areas, like in China, mainland China? Why does that matter if, let's say, I make fun of the way, like, I just am racist towards Chinese people? Why does that matter that history has existed if you cannot point to present systemic institutions that hold up that oppression? Why does it matter?
Dude, like, are you arguing that the C word, the white C word, has some sort of systemic power behind it? I'm just asking you to. No. Stop interrupting. Listen, dude. I am asking you a straight question. I asked you, does the C slur have systemic power?
No. Okay, are you going to answer my question now, or are you going to keep dodging?
Sorry, what do you think I'm dodging? Tell me your question again.
So you didn't even listen. Okay, so in the case of China, why, if you cannot point to a systemic institution that is upholding the racism that I'm apparently throwing out there as a individual black dude going to mainland China, then why, in your mind, am I being racist? Just because it historically people have been racist to Chinese people, therefore it's wrong to be racist to the people? Like, it's only wrong to be racist to people if you have been racist to people in the past? How do you initiate racism if that's the case? Like, if white people first meet Chinese people, how could they possibly be racist to Chinese people if you need a history to be racist?
So if you have first fucking contact with Chinese people and you're like, oh, they look weird, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, you're being mean, but you don't have a history of oppression against them. So while it's like being shitty and prejudiced, it's not racism. Racism requires a system, it requires a history of systemic power and oppression.
Okay, how do you create a history of systemic power, like you just described with racism, How do you initiate hold on. How do you initiate a history of systemic racism if by definition racism requires a history of systemic racism?
Okay, so if we didn't have race in the first place, because you've acknowledged that race is a social construct, if we didn't have race in the first place, then racism wouldn't even be a fucking thing that exists. The reason why we have race is because of the historical context that we live in today. Race is a made-up concept, made up by white people to use to oppress people of color. The historical context is everything. Without the historical context, race doesn't even exist.
Hold on. Just answer me this simple question. First contact, two races of people. How can I be racist to that person if it requires a history of racism to initiate racism?
First contact, you can't. It doesn't exist. Racism isn't like a relevant concept on first contact.
Wait, how do you begin doing a racism then? In general.
So let's look at the history of the racism between white people and black people.
We're going back to feudalism? All right, here we go.
Well, what do you want? Like
I am asking you just a very simple question. Two people meet for the first time. How does racism ensue? You want to know how easy this question is to answer for me? One person makes fun of the way the other person looks based on their skin color or like some racial characteristic they attribute to that group of people. It's that simple. And then boom, you're racist. You're doing a racism. Wow, that's wild. But like, let's take your Blue's Clues journey. All right, we found a clue. Let's go.
Okay, I meet someone for the first time. How do I initiate racism towards them?
Two races of people, two groups. Let's say white people and black people. How does white people initiate racism?
First off, if we're assuming that is race a concept that exists in this world or doesn't exist? Because race, like I said, requires historical context. If we're going to assume that racism is a concept that exists in this first context scenario, then I would have to start like I don't know, fucking like imprisoning them and torturing them and turning them into slaves or turning them into
none of that would matter because there isn't a history of racism there. You can't, by your definition, you understand. I would have to start
building up a history of racism before.
No. You wait.
Like, otherwise, it's prejudiced or it's just straight up being rude. There's a difference between being rude and prejudice and racism.
Simple logical deduction. It is not possible to begin racism by your definition, and that's what I'm pointing out. Because to begin racism, or you define racism as a history of a systemic oppression, of racism, racist oppression against a group of people, right, based on their race. And if that is true, right, then the initial interactions that you have with another group of people cannot be racist. If you first meet them, it cannot be racist because you cannot create a racist history without, in your opinion, appealing to a racist past. How do you
creating a construct of race? You do need to create a construct of race first, and then you need to use that construct of race to oppress people.
So if I create a construct of race, then I can be racist, but otherwise I cannot be racist.
What makes a black person black? Is it their genetics? Is it their biology? Or is it some social construct that we've created that has no basis in biology or any actual physical trait?
It's a social construct that attempts to map onto physical characteristics that they believe are significant to an individual, whatever they may be. The skin color, melanin content, and usually shit like that. That's usually
with geological location, right? Geographic location. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay, the concept. I would have to literally construct them a race because I've never met this person before. I'd have to decide, okay, you're now this race. Let's create a new race for you, and then I'd have to start using that race to oppress you. It's literally the construct of race needs to be built first before you can even have racist oppression.
No,
right?
that's not the point. What I'm saying is race as a construct exists. We understand that in our minds, there are different groups of people. How do I begin doing a racism?
You need to build the construct and then use the construct to oppress the person.
So you have to build the construct of race. Otherwise, it's not possible for you to do a racism.
Well, how else did race start? How does race start to exist?
It's not about whether or not it starts to exist. It's about whether or not you can use a pre-existing system to hurt other people. Like,
okay, but the system
what?
pre-exists because we have a history of using that system. It's like when Columbus went to America and said that you guys are Indians, even though you're not fucking Indians, right? You're indigenous people. It's he used a different construct of race to oppress indigenous people at that time.
That's not relevant to what I said. How is that relevant to what I said? So what?
Relevant. It's relevant to you needing. So you asked in a first context situation, how do you start doing a racism?
Yep.
Do you think that Christopher Columbus did a racism when he did his first contact?
Are you asking me? Yeah. I mean, I would argue I would argue you did a racism when you called Candace Owens and Uncle Tom. Sure.
Okay. My point being that the way racism started there was he used a pre-existing racial construct, Indians, like Indians from India, applied it to the indigenous people, and then started colonizing the indigenous people, oppressing the indigenous people, raping, murdering, and stealing from indigenous people. And then now it's considered bad taste to call an indigenous person an Indian, even though that's literally another person's regular identity because they come from India, right? They use the pre-existing constructs of race of Indian people against indigenous people to North America. So that answers your question. It's relevant because that's the first context situation with a construct of race pre-existing, applied to a group, and then used to oppress that group.
So do you believe, in your mind, do you believe that, let's take the initial point of contact in regards to Indian people or Native American people, and I mean actually Indian people, from India, right? Do you think that these groups of people and the point of contact that they have with these groups of people, do you believe that after race has been committed and they find new groups of people that they'll then lump in with those groups of people, do you think that that counts as racism? Or do you think that, how does that work? If your argument is that the invention of racism does racism, and nobody can be racist outside of the people that just invented race, then, I don't understand what your point is here. Can Han Chinese people not be racist because Han Chinese people didn't come up with, or Chinese people in general didn't come up with the concept of race that we use today?
They can still do racist things towards people. I don't think that, you can be racist and be black. You can be racist and be Chinese. You can be racist and be white, obviously. It's not about your race, whether or not you're being a racist.
That's the issue. You still have, okay, answer me this then. Because you seem to submit to the idea that it could be possible to do racism against white people in the case of a group of people coming to power and genociding a bunch of white people. At what point do you consider it racist? Is it when the agit propaganda says white people are inferior to us, let's say black people, they're inferior, they must be rounded up and put into cages? Is that not racism because the history hasn't been established yet?
Well, you're right. That would be an act of racism, and
wait, why? What's the history? What's
an oppressive act?
What's the history? What's the history?
Okay, does the concept? Okay, but whiteness and that separation wouldn't exist without the historical context of race, right? So if that started to happen, they would just be oh my god, overly absurd examples.
But there is no history, though. There is no history. I'm just saying that white people are inferior.
The history of race still already exists in that context. The history of race between Haitian people and white people still exists in that context.
No, let's say me. Let's say me as a person, me. Right, as an entity.
As an indigenous black Mexican person, do you have a history with white people?
Of course.
Okay, and so if you manage to get enough indigenous, let's say you manage to get enough indigenous people together, just to simplify things, let's say you guys manage to genocide all white people in North America and take back the land, the white horror story, right?
We could start prior to that. What if I'm just simply advocating that we do that? Is that racist?
Advocating for genocide is racist. Sure.
Okay. What about saying that white people are inferior? Is that racist?
I don't know, man. You don't have the systemic power. It's prejudiced. It's mean, but it's not racist. It's prejudiced.
Okay, so then I go to mainland China and I do the same thing against Chinese people. How is that not racist?
Oh, fine. By your argument, that's not racist. You're just being a prejudiced asshole in that situation.
No, not by my argument, by your argument. This is your argument. This is your deal. I would argue any of the shit that we've talked about today, half the shit you've done today is racist. Right? Colin Candace Owens and Uncle Tom, hey, that's bold. Hey, that's bold. I'll give it to you. It's pretty fucking weird coming from a white dude. I'm going to be straight with you. All right? Half the shit we've described is racist shit. All right? Twitch is breathing down my neck, I'm certain. Okay? This isn't my argument. This is your bed to sleep in, okay? You said it's not racist for me to say white people are inferior because I don't have systemic power. I ain't got no power, and I'm actively discriminated against in mainland China. If I come through saying the same type beat, why am I not racist?
Is there a history of systemic oppression against Chinese people?
Yeah, but not by me.
Who cares? Do they have a history of being systemically oppressed? Like I said,
sure,
it doesn't matter who you are. You are still committing racist
so then,
acting.
no. This is the.
It doesn't matter who is doing the racism.
No. Hold on. We're looping.
It doesn't matter who is doing the racism.
Okay,
it's still racism.
We're looping again. So you would say that a history means that it's racist. Not that anything is happening right now, but that there's a history. No systemic oppression currently going on right now. No systems of power at all going on right now. But just because something has happened in the past, therefore it's racist. Into infinity. Correct?
It also matters what's happening right now as well.
No.
Yes.
Okay, well, wait, hold on. What's happening right now? I'm just some random black dude that just got off a plane in mainland China. What do you mean?
Okay, is there a... Oh, God. So if you start going to China and start talking about the China virus, for example, and shit like that, it has a historical context, a recent historical context, but a historical context nonetheless of it being used to oppress Chinese people in America. And you going there and being an American, like, whatever, and saying a bunch of anti-Chinese things in China is still racist.
Yeah. How long do I have to wait before I can be racist to Chinese people in mainland China? Or is it infinity? It's because it's happened in the past, it will infinitely not be okay.
When the context of the slurs change, I guess you can use them however you want. But right now, the context of the slurs is such that the Chinese C slur is pretty abhorrent. And the white C slur is a joke.
So what you've established to me is that the history is what matters. So how do I begin to start a history? I can't initiate racism with white people because hold on.
If you don't understand oppressing people, like, I don't know what to tell you, dude.
You're saying I can't initiate racism with somebody without a history of racism. How do I initiate racism if it needs a history of racism?
Dude, this whole thing where you want to be ahistorical about racism is so weird.
I'm not being ahistorical, dude. You're the person that's saying that, like, black people were cool with white people calling black people Uncle Toms, dude. Chill.
I said it's something that I've heard, and I might be wrong. And as you pointed out, as I said in this conversation, I'll stop using it. You seem pretty against it, and I'm getting different answers from people. So yeah, I'll stop using that term. Fine. Great. I'm not going to stop calling people the white C slur. Oh my God. I have to say white C slur now. This is a fucking Twitch.
Yeah, I know. Not being able to say racial slurs sucks. Kind of sucks.
I mean, if I start talking about Ritz crackers, am I going to start like... oh, whatever, fuck. It's a joke. It's literally a joke. White people have all this history of being like systemic oppressors and like taking out their horrible fucking actions against people. And, like, we have a historical context for race. Race requires a historical context because it's a social construct. Without us creating the social construct, we wouldn't even be able to be racist to anybody in the first place.
So then so hold on. You already established a minute ago that it would be racist to advocate that for a genocide against white people. It would be racist, correct?
If you have systemic power.
Wait. So if I have no systemic power, arguing that advocating for a genocide of white people is not racist.
It's fucked and it's weird. But like I said, if we're going to use the definition that where systemic power is necessary, then no, it's not racist. But that's like
what if hold on. What if I take to the streets with a gun and start killing white people because I believe they are inferior? Is that a racist action?
It's a hate crime. Yeah, sure.
Wait, you understand a hate? Wait, so yes, it is racist?
Oh my god.
I have no systemic power, homie. How is that racist by your argument?
Can I ask you? Let's see. Can you be racist against people with disabilities because of their disability?
No, that's ableist.
Exactly. That has a meaning. The word racism also has a meaning. It requires systemic power.
So it is not racist to take to the streets and actively try and kill white people.
Now, I'm not saying that you should take to the streets and actively kill white people. That's obviously
I'm saying, is it not racist to do that?
No, it's not. It's technically not racist.
Crazy.
It's just a violent act. It's a violent act, and it's. Oh my god.
No, I don't. I literally don't have to say in a video game to do this. It's literally the example in context. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, of course not. like I said, it's. If we're going to get hyper technical and what's the word when you like fixate on the definitions of words?
Okay, so then let me ask you this.
I still think it's abhorrent. I don't think it's abhorrent to call someone a C word if they're white.
So wait,
I do think it's abhorrent to kill people and genocide people.
So
I think that's pretty obvious. Like,
it's not. By the way, so your statement is that it's not about systemic power. It's about past systemic power, because the systemic power you cannot make. And what?
And the current context of what you're doing. Yeah, systemic power matters.
What do you mean the current
also
context?
Well.
What do you mean the current context? Because you said being mean or literally poking fun at Chinese people at all is racist because white people did it in the past. So what is can you provide me a context where making fun of Chinese people wouldn't be racist?
By your definition, you are starting to do a racism when you commit a genocide because you are changing like you're starting to systemically what? Genocide requires the systemic removal of a race, right?
First off, it requires you to say that a group of people is inferior based on their race, which makes it racist. That's what makes it racist.
Sorry, but is a genocide inherently racist? I guess is your question. Basically, what you asked me.
Are you asking me this? Yeah, I would say so. If it's based on race, yeah.
Dude, whatever, dude. I have another 13 minutes if you want to go through this, or we can just like, I don't know, dude. Because like, all I'm saying is that.
So in your mind, so are you sticking with the position that it is not racist to literally kill white people and on the basis of their race? That is not racist in a video game or whatever, because my people keep me for that.
I don't think that you're first off, if Twitch is concerned, Ahrelevant is not advocating for the genocide of white people. It's quite obvious that they're not. Also, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know why you seem to think that, like...
So, no, I'm just trying to establish, then. Would you say that the action of killing white people, genociding white people on the basis of their race, believing that they are inferior, is not racist until you get rid of hold on until you get rid of give me 1 second get rid of enough no, it's not inherently systemic. You can absolutely have a minority of people actively go out and try and kill as many people as possible. You can have that happen.
Systemic, even if it's smaller. You don't have to have a majority to
wait so me committing a mass shooting is systemic power?
No oh my god, if you and a group of people started to genocide requires a system of removing a people.
Okay, let me rephrase. Commit mass shootings that are targeted at specifically white people in GTA 5.
No, then you're just a violent freak.
But that's not racist?
It's prejudiced. It's fucked up. It's weird, but it's not technically racist. No.
Okay.
But that's a semantic argument.
No. Like allow me to get... No, it's not a semantic argument. Okay, so... I want to know from your eyes, right, specifically here, how many people, or is it like when there is not a majority white people that are in power and there's a majority of whatever people are killing white people, then it becomes racist because now we have 51 seats compared to the whiteys that have like 50 seats, and then now it's good, and now we're racist because now we have more seats in like in the Senate?
Do we have an active group of people who are advocating for the genocide of white people through mass shooting? Like, that's not...
In this scenario, yeah.
Well, yeah, in this scenario, then sure, it's a group of people committing an act of racism towards white people if it's a systemic thing.
Wait,
but if you're just doing
what makes it a systemic thing? What makes it a systemic thing?
Okay, let me ask you something. Is it, like... It can be racially motivated, but it doesn't have to be, like, just because something's racially motivated doesn't mean it's racist.
I think I disagree. I think something that is derogatory and racially motivated is racist. My Discord, not yours. If it's racially motivated, derogatory statements or otherwise, it is racist.
Okay, well then our definitions of what racism is different.
That's what the whole conversation's been about, homie. So let me bring you back. Hold on, let me bring you back because you strayed away. At what point do the people that are committing mass shootings of white people, at what point are they racist?
When it becomes a regular thing, when it becomes a thing that happens regularly, when it becomes a thing that people advocate for.
What is regularly? Let's say that one individual does advocate for it.
Okay, so that one individual is trying to create a systemic genocide of white people. So yeah, they're being racist. It requires systemic action.
Wait, no. If I'm trying to create a systemic issue of killing white people, then this hypothetical person is trying to institute a system of power to kill white people. That means they haven't done it yet. Would it be racist to try and enact that system, to attempt to create that system? Would it be racist? Yes or no?
Oh my God. This is the nitty gritty that we're getting down to? Sure, dude. Is it racist to start trying to genocide people? Like, what the dude? You're getting so deep.
If your answer is yes, why? Wait. If your answer is yes, why? I have no systems of power. There is no history of systems of power for me to be able to do this. Why is it racist in your mind? Because you're appealing to I know deep down you want to appeal to the base take that I have, that it's just racist to be fucking incredibly bigoted or just bigoted at all based on the way that somebody looks. It's a pretty cringe thing to do. My Discord, not yours. I know you got it in you. I just want to bring it out. Why is it racist to attempt to do that? Why is that racist?
Look, dude, you don't like what I have been saying. I'm like remaining consistent to my fucking things here until it is a systematic attempt at killing white people. It's not a fucking like
okay, cool.
It's just a magic fucking
hold
thing.
On. Would you agree? Even with the idea, what about a systematic attempt to dehumanize white people and say that all white people are inferior to all other groups of people? Would that also meet your merit, or is it only killing people? Is that it's only a racism when we actively shoot people, not when we say that they are genetically and biologically inferior to all other groups of people?
So wait, is using the C word saying that
I'm not saying that. Deal with the hypothetical. Deal with the hypothetical.
No, you're actually just like moving the goalposts.
I'm not moving the goalposts. I'm not saying that this is it. This is it. I'm trying to bring your argument as close as I can to where you actually are holding it, because it seems like your opinion is changing. So I just want to hear from your perspective. Is it okay for me to advocate, or for anyone to advocate online, that white people are genetically and biologically inferior to other races? Is that okay? Or is that a racism?
Yeah, that's a racism by definition.
Okay. If that is a racism by definition, why?
Based off of the definition of race as a genetic, like having a biological basis, yeah, you're assuming that race is a real thing with real biology and that you're applying it to...
Wait. Let's just say I use the word white people then. White people are inferior to all other groups of people. Would you still say that's a racism? I don't say genetic or biologically. I just say white people.
Yeah, actually, I think white people are inferior to all of other people, because white people isn't a real fucking thing. White people, being a white people isn't real. You come from a specific place. It's a social construct.
Okay, that's like, cool. Can you say that for black people then? Like right now? I want to hear you say that for black people because you know that's not how it works. Well, go ahead, say it for black people. You just said it for white people.
Because whiteness is an exclusionary idea.
Well, no, you just said it for white people, so I want to hear you say it for black people.
If we're going to, it literally
bullshit. You know you're appealing to some other kind of idea, or you would just say it for black people. I want to hear what you just said for white people. I want to hear you say it for black people. You know you're appealing to something else. You're appealing to some idea that you have that it's okay to say this about white people, but not about black people. That's why you won't say it. Or maybe you're gonna prove me wrong. I want to hear you say it.
You want me to hear me say what?
The same thing you just said for white people, but replace the white people with black people. If you believe that position, go ahead.
That whiteness is an exclusionary concept?
No, you said white people are inferior to all other forms of people, or all other people because race is a social construct. I want to hear you say that for black people.
Because I don't see whiteness as people's innate, immutable identity.
Sure, that's a cool story. I want to hear you say it for black people.
Dude.
Yeah,
whiteness.
So you're appealing to some other idea in your mind that it is okay to say this about white people and not black people. That's okay to do in your mind, but at least be candid when you realize that you are appealing to a separate moral system that you abide by that idea.
Yeah, it is okay to shit on white people. Yeah, I'm down with that.
Okay, listen, man. Hey, listen. I hope you understand why I say you got some white guilt. I hope you can understand that, all right? I hope that's a little bit more transparent right now of why I think that a lot of the people that hold this position are getting these vibes. Because that shit's pretty cringe. All right? There's no good reason to shit on all white people. There's a good reason to shit on some white people, just like there's a good reason to shit on all groups of people in specifically the individual people that might fall within them. Like, I don't know why you're being cringe here, but I'm going to try again at the previous point here for a second, okay? Why is it racist for me to argue that white people are inferior to all other groups of people?
I don't know, dude. I don't actually think it's racist to argue that white people are inferior, because unless you're like legitimately, like, I don't think you're taking that seriously. It's like a tongue-in-cheek, I'm just saying shit to say shit.
No. Let's say that I am very serious. I truly believe that white people are inferior to black, or to whatever group of people. It doesn't have to be black people. I believe that, my heart and soul. And I'm spreading propaganda and saying that you should believe it too. Is that racist?
Okay, I honestly think that whiteness is an identity that we should abolish, that we shouldn't identify with whiteness, and that if you do identify with whiteness, you are part of the problem. Being white isn't a good thing. It is part of a systemic, like, controlling, oppressive thing that we have, and we should be doing our best to disassociate ourselves with whiteness. I do think that being white is an inferior position to just being yourself. And while you may be classified as white, you should be doing whatever you can to abolish whiteness and abolish systems that uphold whiteness.
I didn't know you were running for Congress. That was a very political answer, so I'm going to try it again. Is actively saying that white people are inferior to all other groups of people racist?
No.
Okay, why?
There's your sound clip. There's your sound clip for you. Now you can listen to my answer like I gave you already. White people are, like, whiteness is an exclusionary concept that requires you to exclude people of color based off of the one drop rule, and it is literally used to oppress and control people. We should be trying to abolish whiteness. We should be trying to abolish.
Why is it not racist? We shouldn't
be identifying with whiteness.
Why is it not racist for me to argue that white people are inferior to all other groups of people?
Because white people are inferior to all other groups of people. White people, what do you want? I'm just like, I'll give you the clip you want. Tell me what you want me to say. White people, like, you shouldn't want to be white. Being white isn't a good thing. And
would you agree that you shouldn't want to be black?
There's a difference there. Black
You're
people
a fucking hack. You're a fucking hack. You're such a fucking hack, dude.
You can be proud of where you come from, but you don't have to...
You could just say, yeah, you shouldn't, you want to be proud of being black. You should just want to be proud to be a person. Like, you could have owned that, but you're such a fucking hack, dude. That was such easy thing you could have owned, but you decided to be a slimy fuck about it.
There's a difference between being black and being white. Being black is not an innately exclusionary position. It's not an innately exclusionary identity.
What do you mean?
Okay.
Race in itself is intrinsically exclusionary. What are you talking about?
Being white, you can become white or you can become not white, but you cannot not become black.
Yes, you can. What do you mean? There are groups of people that were considered black that are not considered black, and that were never considered black or are considered black. What do you mean?
Like Latinos were never considered black. They were considered people of color. They were considered Latinos. They were their own separate racial construct.
You know,
but whiteness requires you to be literally nothing of any other race. Whiteness requires you to literally have no other race. It's
if you're defining it as white and not white, yeah, sure. If you're defining it that way,
that's literally that's the definition that we use in our fucking what's the word? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. The social studies. Yeah, social studies. That's the definition we use in social studies. That whiteness is an exclusionary concept. Whiteness requires you to exclude the other races. You're only white if you're not everything else.
Simple then. What does advocating for like let's say 5 people to commit mass murder of white people? What makes that racist? And not arguing that white people are inferior to all other groups of people. What makes that not racist? What is the difference you're drawing there?
Look, dude, I don't think that you should commit genocide against any group of people.
Well, no, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is what makes that racist versus the other one not racist. That's not what I asked. So go ahead and answer that for me.
What? You're asking me why advocating for the genocide of white people isn't racist? Is that the question?
No. You stated that was racist. Are you of that opinion? Still?
Okay. You know what? No, I'm not of that opinion. Like I said, I hold a new abolitionist or a white abolitionist perspective. I guess in theory, what I have actually even said on my own is we need to commit white genocide, but not in the sense of killing white people, but of removing that specific identity from the public.
Okay, because let's say that there's somebody that is advocating for the killing of white people because they believe they're genetically inferior. Is that person racist?
Yes, because they're trying to implement a system of using race to justify the killing of white people, and that would require racism, which is a system.
Okay,
wow, we've gone back to the system of racism.
If that's the case, then why is the person who is arguing that white people are inferior not racist as well? Because they're trying to institute a system.
Dude, I'm out of time. I have to go to work.
Yeah. Okay.
I told you, 15 minutes ago that I had 13 minutes?
Yeah.
I've got to get going.
All right. You have a good one.
I appreciate the conversation.
Wait, can you answer me one last question? It's a quick one.
What?
Quick one. Where do you think your opinions on this come from? Like, who did you look to be able to guide you in your thought?
A lot of these opinions come from, oh God. So I literally took like classes on racism in university that covered the topic of like racialized zoning, the history of racism, the history of white identity, the history of like all this shit. It was specifically in the context of Indigenous peoples of Canada. And so a lot of this comes from, what are some good resources? I guess like, what did we even read? We read like White Privilege, Unpacking the Night, the Privilege Knapsack, and like, there's a lot of resources that cover this shit. And I think that my position is like relatively well, like, whatever. Of course I like my own position. I'm an idiot though, so who cares? I'm just some rando online.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, I appreciate you talking to me. I think that you're a good guy. Honestly, you're just advocating for being as nice to everybody as possible, and I don't see anything wrong in that. At the same time, I mean,
sure, if you want to characterize it that way. I don't, it's very simple, all right? People don't like feeling bad about things they cannot change. I think you are a piece of human waste if you are actively going out of your way to make people feel bad because of the way that they look or something they cannot change. I think you're a piece of human waste. But
sure.
that's my.
And
that's
I
just
personally
my opinion.
like. I can see why you'd feel that way. I don't think that people using the word cracker are just going around calling every random person a cracker. I think they're usually using
Really? You know the person that you came in here in reference to, San, literally got banned for doing that, right?
He got banned for defending the use of the word cracker. Yeah,
He literally
do know.
used it. What do you mean? He was using it against people that disagreed with his use of it. He was calling a bunch. He threw them out like he had the fucking hit count.
Yeah, okay. I don't think it's a big deal. If you're gonna be upset about someone calling you a cracker, like it's not the end of the world, right? Please. Oh, sorry. You know, I'm about to go. Yep. Anyways, I'll stop using it.
Yeah, I just think we shouldn't normalize it, okay? Just don't normalize it. And right now, I'd say you're doing a lot of legwork trying to normalize that it's okay to do that and that it's just fine to do that. Even propping up the idea that maybe in some cases we should do that. And I disagree with that. All right, buddy?
All right. Well, anyways, take care. I hope you have a good rest of your stream, dude.
Yep, you have a good one. See you. Bye.
Don't delete that VOD or upload it on YouTube. It's a fucking
I've seen enough for race theory needs to be banned.
Nice. I'm gonna say it. Nice. They think they are taking the academic analysis of systemic racism and misusing it, trying to apply all racism. Basically, they're misapplying a specific academic discipline in a non-academic setting.
Where I learned about
math. This is the issue. They
have classes about numbers and shit and such things.
Wait,
so many. I can't remember.
Nice meme.
How is prejudice against white people racist?
Yep. I don't. I think genuinely they started to
You're
give
an
up
absolute
at the end.
legend.
Thank you, buddy. So, it's just everybody gets confused systemic racism versus interpersonal racism. It's just that simple. All of these people are lost on what interpersonal racism was. And I wanted to bring it back to that. On that shit. Yeah, and by the way, the reason we got into that conversation was because I said that this discourse is stemming from a position that justifies bigotry towards white people. And it literally got to the point where I would say definitively prove that. The dude literally said mass killing of white people because they're white is not racist. Like, how is that not justifying bigotry against white people? I don't know. That's just crazy. Like, it's just, I want to remind everybody the reason that began in the first place. These overly guilty white people always treat POC people like they're too dumb to have the right takes, and it's insanely cringe. Well, that was another thing that I had to give up on because they didn't draw the parallel. And maybe they'll do it in the future. Maybe they'll come back. But, like, that's what it... How is it that a white dude...
Stream, VOD is staying up tonight, right? Pepe laugh.
I don't know, maybe.
But Rella, he didn't mean genocide in that way. It was just a figure of speech, Pepe laugh.
Of course, what do you mean? I don't advocate for the genocide of anybody. That shit is cringe, and if it's based on race, racist. If it's based on, disability, it's ableist. Right? Like, I think that shit's really cringe. Right? I think that shit's really cringe. I don't advocate for genocide of any group of people. Right? But
will you keep the VOD /upload it
on? I'm definitely gonna try and get this on YouTube. The question is like whether or not I'm going to how quickly that's going to be, and whether or not I'm going to delete the VOD on Twitch. He also was using systemic to say an organized plan to do so in a group can engage in systemic racism because it's planned out. Yeah, like large groups of people doing something makes it systemic, which is just bizarre. It's just really weird, you know? So I don't know. It's all over the place. Just for everybody listening at home. Or at work. I know a lot of you fucks are listening to me at work, not doing your goddamn job, okay? Not doing your goddamn job, all right? Not doing your fucking job. All right? I know you fucks. There's a difference between systemic racism and interpersonal racism. I would argue that it is impossible at this moment, at least in America, for white people to face systemic racism. I would believe that's not possible, right? Because the systems are not systemically racist against them, but they are beyond capable of facing interpersonal racism. For instance, like what we just witnessed right there. You know, what we just witnessed was interpersonal racism against white people. right? And the goal, hopefully, is to avoid the normalization of these things to prevent not only the idea that it's cool to do it against people that we believe are a dominant group. The goal is to avoid that and to avoid doing that, avoid potentially, highly doubt it though, practically impossible in my opinion, white people becoming actually systemically oppressed inside the United States. But in case it might happen, we should obviously argue that it would be a moral bad. I doubt it would ever happen though. This entire conversation felt like this meme. Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to show it because it's yeah. Anyway, what is losing an employment opportunity due to some state-sponsored affirmative action, if not systemic racism? It depends on how you lost. It's like, I talked about affirmative action before in reference to shit. It's not as simple as people like to make it out to be. Have you watched any Janet Elliott's experiments? No, I don't know who the fuck that person is. He also misunderstood the concept of whiteness at the end. Like when you call somebody a C-word, you're not referencing the concept of whiteness. You're talking about how they look. Yeah, and like I don't know. It's like when I make fun of the way that this white person is, I'm really making a systemic argument. Like, bro, what? No, you just don't like this white dude and you're just reaching for something that you could take to insult them. It's like, I don't know, that person thinks that, like, when white people call black people the N-word, they're like, yes, and I am understanding my systemic privilege over this individual, and I wish to lower their caste inside of society by actualizing my systemic power as a white person. No, they just don't like you, homie. It's that deep. That's where it starts and ends. They just really hate you. Like, I don't know. People acted like everybody simultaneously, like, Schrodinger's black person, dude. It's simultaneously the black people are fucking everything that they say, every insult that they say towards white people is brought about entirely through systemic understanding of this oppression, and that's what they're critiquing truly is the systemic institutions and shit like that. But also, like, they're so dumb that they actually can't do racism right. It's weird. It's fucking weird. Weird. I don't know. It is what it is.
The rules, and they just want to make their own right-wing echo chamber and own the libs, but because they break the rules, they get banned. Well, he literally went on his channel and said that he's allowed to say racial slurs, particularly if they're against white people, and now he's gotten a ban for it. The important thing here is...
Oh, sorry, the last thing I was going to address is I had to give up on the point of the Bernie Sanders and versus the Candace Owens thing because he just wasn't budging on the logical inconsistency of that. Essentially, the idea was if he could call Candace Owens an Uncle Tom and state that my position is morally superior to your position to the point where I can, refer to you in a derogatory fashion in conjunction with your race on it, why could some Bernie bro not say that black people are low information voters? Because they believe that they have a superior position in regards to what helps black people as well. Why couldn't they do that? And he just couldn't answer that fucking question. It was kind of weird.